Chibi Chubby Tubby. The Chibi Chubby Tubby. The Chibi Chubby Tubby. The Chibi Chubby Tubby.
Hello everyone, thank you for attending today's lecture and happy Friday the 13th. I am Professor Stitch. I will be taking you through the introduction to today's lecture. We will be summoning a familiar. Now, as you know, familiars are somewhat better than your average pet, as they are highly trained animals, prepared to do your every bidding. Mine, for example, went and picked up my dry cleaning this morning. Very well trained. Now, today's minion, or familiar, is of the Chibi Chubby Tubby variety. We are going to summon a bat. Ready? There, you see? Pardon me. This little fellow is not only cute, but he is small and therefore stealthy. And stealthy familiars are especially handy. And this one flies, which is possibly even better than your typical cat. Not that I have anything against cats, of course, but this one flies. And I do love flying pets. Familiars. Anyway, today my assistant will be taking you through the ins and outs of the summoning spell. So I will now send you all over to the craft table where she will meet you. Ready, everyone? Ha!
Alright everyone, in order to make our Chibi Chubby Tubby bats, this is a scrap project, so you're only going to need a small amount of worsted weight or chunky weight yarn to make his body. This is some leftover Super Saver that I have. I'm going to use a purple color today, just so you can see my stitches better. You're also going to need a little bit of white, very small amount. This is some scrap worsted weight yarn I have left over. It's best if you use a worsted weight or a skinnier weight yarn, the white color for his eyes, because it'll make them a little bit more of a manageable size. And also, you're going to need a couple of small black beads for the middle of his eyes. These are just simple little black glass beads. I picked up a package of them at Walmart. And you're going to need a needle and thread to sew those on. You're going to need a pair of scissors, a yarn needle, and today's hook. Whether you're using worsted weight or chunky weight yarn, you're going to use a 4.25 millimeter hook or a G6. And once you've got all that together, we can get started. As mentioned, we are going to move a little quicker through the body of this tutorial since there is an existing tutorial that moves a little slower and the body is similar, and that's the Chibi Chubby Tubby cat. The link for that is in the description box down below. Row 1, we're going to begin with a cinch circle, and once you've chained one to secure your cinch circle, you're going to work 6 single crochets into it. Once you've got 6 single crochets worked into your cinch circle, cinch it up nice and tight, and we're going to work directly into the next stitch, or the first stitch of row 1, so we're not joining. I'm going to work over my short tail, but you can weave them in later if you like. We're going to work 2 single crochets into every single stitch from row 1. So row 1 has 6 stitches in it. At the end of row 2, you're going to have 12 stitches. So 2 single crochet into every stitch all the way around. At the end of row 2, you should have 12 single crochets. Go ahead and give it a quick count if you haven't already. We're going to go directly into the next stitch to begin row 3. We're going to work 2 double crochet into the first stitch, double crochet into the next stitch. And you're going to repeat that. 2 double crochet into the next stitch, double crochet into the stitch after that. Repeat that little 2, 1, 2, 1 all the way around, and you'll have 18 stitches at the end of row 3. At the end of row 3, you should have 18 stitches. Give it a quick count. And now you can just start single crocheting into each stitch all the way around for an additional 6 rows. So we've worked rows 1 through 3. By the time you get to the end of row 9, you should still have 18 stitches in every single row, but you'll have 9 rows and a tubby little body forming. Once you're at the end of row 9, and I count by going, here's row 1, the little bottom row 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I know I've got 9 rows. And I use this little bump right here where row 1 turns into row 2 as my start point. And I go all the way up, and if I've stopped somewhere back here when I finished counting, I just add a bunch more single crochets. It doesn't change your stitch count, and it puts you right in line with your little start point. That makes things nice and even. So at the end of row 9, you can start to add a little bit of stuffing. I have some homemade stuffing here, and if you're looking for stuffing ideas, we've got a fun little video on alternate kinds of stuffing, and we'll put a link to that in the description box down below as well. Just stuff your little Chibi Chubby. Try to do it as nice and evenly as possible. You don't have to completely stuff it all the way to the top because we are going to add a couple more little rows before we completely finish it up. So just enough so that it's maybe just a little bit, maybe 1 row shy from the top. I know it's a bit difficult to see because I'm using dark stuffing. Put your hook back in, and we're going to add our last little row. This is row 10. We're going to close in the top a little bit. So we're going to work 2 single crochets together. So you pull up a loop in each of the next 2 stitches, wrap, and pull back through everything. Single crochet into the next stitch, and then repeat that. Single crochet 2 stitches together, and single crochet into the next stitch. You're going to repeat that all the way around, and you'll be back down to 12 stitches. At the end of row 10, you should be back down to 12 stitches. You can pull up on your loop and add enough stuffing that you feel your Chibi Chubby bat is as stuffed as you like. So go ahead, add as much more stuffing as you feel you need to make it a chubby little chibi. Once you've got enough stuffing in your little pet and you feel like it's, you can still pinch the top together and it doesn't want to come out, but it still feels nice and sturdy, that's enough stuffing. And now we're going to close it up. So this is row 11. We are now going to pinch the edges together, and you're going to look at your stitches now in terms of sets. So you're going to ignore this stitch, this one here that your loop's coming out of, and you want to look at, I'm just going to put them on my hook for you, this one and this one. So that's your first set. So ignore this one that your loop is coming out of, you want that one as your first set of stitches. So we're going to half double crochet into it. I'm going to get my yarn in the right place. So wrap, pick up both of those stitches on your hook, pull up your loop, that's a half double crochet, chain 1, and half double crochet through the same set of stitches. There we go. I know it can be a little bit fiddly because we're working with a big chubby thing underneath our hands here. Now we're going to slip stitch through the next set, the next 3 sets of stitches actually. So pick up the next set of stitches and slip stitch through them. Pick up the next set and slip stitch through them, and the last set. And that will leave you with 1, 2, 3, 4 stitches. So what we're going to do is ignore this little thing on the end. We're going to worry about this set right here. We're going to half double crochet, chain 1, half double crochet through that same set of stitches. So that last little set before your end, half double crochet, chain 1, half double crochet, woo! And then we're going to just slip stitch into that edge. So this is technically a set of stitches that creates the little corner, and this is the post that my hook is under here. So we worked half double crochet, chain 1, half double crochet into that second last set. There's these last little 2 pinched together. Just slip your hook through that post and slip stitch. And that is going to give us 2 tiny little bat-like ears. So you can fasten off, grab your yarn needle, and weave in that tail. And we'll move on to his wings. It's time to make his little wings, and each one is just a little bit different than the other, so I'm going to work through them with you. Grab your yarn and your hook. We're going to start with a slip knot. We're going to chain 4 to begin. Skip the first chain from the hook, find the second one and slip stitch into it. Single crochet into the next chain and double crochet into the last chain. And then you're going to repeat that all over again. Chain 4. Skip the first chain from the hook, find the second and slip stitch into it. Single crochet into the next and double crochet into the last one. Chain 1, and now we're going to single crochet 3 into the top of each of these triangles. So you're going to find a little piece of the top of your triangle, little loops, I guess, whatever sort of crests the top of it. And you're going to work 3 single crochets across the top of each of those triangles. Your last single crochet can be worked into the first chain you made. You can just ignore your little short tail because we're going to weave that in a second. And now we just need to finish this little wing off. We're going to chain 3. Skip the first chain from the hook, slip stitch into the second chain, and single crochet into the last chain. And then, right there, right where your little tail is coming out of, that same first chain that we started the whole thing with, you're going to slip stitch right into that thing. And that is it. You're going to leave yourself enough tail that you can eventually sew this to your bat with it. You want to fasten off, grab your needle, you're going to weave in your short tail across the back, but more importantly, you're going to take your long tail and you're going to weave it across the back of some of those stitches all the way to the end of the wing. So you're just going to slip it up underneath some of these stitches. And then gently, not too tightly, you're going to pull out the rest of the tail, and it's at the edge of your wing, so it's ready to sew your little bat wing onto your bat. So take a second, weave that little short tail in, and then we'll move on to the second wing. So we've just completed his left wing, and now we're going to make his right wing. And the first part of this right wing is the same as the left wing. So you're going to start with a slip knot, chain 4, skip the first stitch, slip stitch into the second chain from the hook, then single crochet, then double crochet, and you're going to do that twice, just like the first wing. Once you've got your 2 triangles, we're going to put that little end piece on over here. So we're going to chain 3, skip the first chain, slip stitch into the second chain, single crochet into the last chain, and then we're going to single crochet 3 across the top of each of our triangles. So same thing that we did on the first wing. You're going to find a little loop to pick up a stitch in 3 times across the top of each of your triangles. Once you've single crocheted 3 across each top of the triangles, then that will leave you with just fastening off. So we're going to leave ourselves some yarn, just enough that we can sew the little edge to our bat. And you're just going to weave in the short tail because your fasten off tail is right where it needs to be for the sewing on this particular wing. So just take a second and weave in that short tail. Next we want to make his little eyes. You're going to want 2 of these. We're going to begin by crocheting the little white part. So grab your white yarn. We're going to begin with a cinch circle, and you're going to single crochet 6 into this circle. Once you've got 6 single crochet into your cinch circle, grab the short tail, cinch it really, really tightly. Find the first single crochet you made, get your hook under it, and join with a slip stitch. And that is it. You're going to leave yourself enough tail that you can sew your eye to your bat when you're finished. Fasten off. Grab your yarn needle and just weave that little short tail in across the back a little bit. Doesn't have to be done a whole lot. In fact, you can just sort of put it under a few stitches and then trim whatever's left. This is going to sit to the back. There you go. Now we want to add the little bead in the center of his eye. So you need your needle and thread. I like to double up my thread. I don't know if you can see that I've got both the threads there. I put them together at the end. I make a little knot, and that way I know it's a little bit stronger because it's double threaded. Pick up the white of my eye, flip it upside down, and I'm just going to anchor my thread on the back of it. So I try to split the thread with my needle. There we go. Then I'm going to bring it through to the right side, right through the middle. And I'm going to slide my bead on it. And then I'm going to sew back and forth sort of through pieces of the yarn on either side of the very middle, because you don't want to go right through the hole in the middle, because then you might just risk pulling the bead back to the wrong side of your eye. So just sew it down 3, maybe 4 times to make sure it's really good and on there, and then we'll knot off. When you finish sewing down your little bead, flip your eye back over and then just pick up a couple of stitches with your needle so that you can create simple little knots on the back of your eye. You want to knot your thread maybe 2 or 3 times just to make sure that it's not going to go anywhere. There we go. And then you can just trim it. Make sure you've got 2 of these, and then we'll start sewing everything on. First thing we're going to do is put on his wings. So you want to make sure that you've got left and right wings sitting on the left and right side of the body. Put his eyes to the side. And that your sewing threads should be coming out at the top of the blunt triangle. So not where the little tip is, but the side of the sort of the blunt triangle there. We're going to grab our yarn needles. We'll start with the left wing. And you want to attach it so that it's really close to his ear. So for example, it's hard to see because it's black, but I've got it anchored just below where his ear is on the side of the body. So we come down the ear. You can even like hold it up if you like, decide where you want it. You want it pretty much the row below where the ear ends. So I'm going to just want to sew it back and forth through this little corner. So these 3 little stitches, the top, the side stitch where it really reaches the body, and maybe one just below it, and just go back and forth through the same little anchoring spot at the side of the body. Sew it 2 or 3, maybe 4 times. And that will make sure that it's not going anywhere. Alright, once you've sewn it on and you feel like that's pretty well anchored, it's not going anywhere, and it sits out from the body, take the rest of your yarn and bring it through the body to a space in the middle back of your bat, and you're going to do the same thing on the other side. So you're going to sew the other wing on the opposite side, so opposite the other wing. Same thing, through a couple of through the edge of this wing to just below the ear, and when you're done, pull the tail out through the exact same little space and we'll knot them together. Once you've got both your wings on and you've run both your tails out through the same little space on the back, knot them together twice, at least twice. If you have slippery yarn, then you might want to knot them together a third time. Then you can grab your yarn needle and just push the knot back through that little hole, back into the body, and you can slip your hook, or your needle I should say, in through some other stitches and just grab the hook, grab the knot of your threads, wiggle your needle back and forth, and it'll pull the rest of those tails into the body. So it's hidden inside the body, the knot is hidden inside the body, and it acts as just a little bit of extra stuffing, and why not? Next we want to put his little eyeballs on, so grab both eyes. They're fairly large, and you want them close together in the top middle of his face, so sort of sitting somewhere between where his wings are anchored. So once you've decided kind of where you want them both, hold one in place. You can pin it if you're not comfortable holding it like I do. And then you're going to just pick up a piece of a stitch from the body of your bat. I'm going to thread up our long tail here. And you're just going to sew the eye, carefully keeping your thumb on it so it doesn't move, by picking up little pieces of stitches of the bat that's right underneath or right close to the corresponding stitch at the side of the eye. Make sure every couple of stitches it hasn't moved and it's still in the right place, and just work your way all the way around your eye. When you're done sewing on the eye, take your needle and your yarn, run it through to a space somewhere in the top middle of his forehead, and then you're going to do the same thing with the other eye. So go ahead, sew on the other eye, and when you're finished, pull that tail up through the same place. We're going to knot them together and weave them into the body, just like we did for the wings. Once you've knotted both your ends together, poke the knot back through into the body of your bat, and then just grab that knot on the inside with the tip of your needle, wiggle your needle back and forth, and pull those tails into the body. And once you've done that, you're done your bat! Yeah, one chibi chubby little bat, a perfect little minion for this time of year.
There you have it. That is how you summon a bat familiar of the Chibi Chubby Tubby variety. Now, if a bat isn't quite to your taste, then we do have other Chibi Chubby Tubby familiars. We have a cat and a rather funky spell for an owl. You will find links to both of those lectures in the magical box below this window. Now, if you'll excuse me, everyone, I must away with me. I have to go looking for my familiar. He didn't return with my dry cleaning. I hope you have better luck with yours. Remember, you have to train them every day, and hopefully they will be a little more better behaved. Right, everyone, stay safe, stay crafty. We will see you shortly on another one of our magical lectures. Have a great week. Ta-ta, everyone.